You are listening to Be Amplified, the podcast with Brie and Thais, episode 45. Hey Amplifiers, welcome to Be Amplified, the podcast. My name is Thais.
And I'm Brie Seeley. We are the co-founders of the Amplify Collective,
a movement aimed at radically disrupting how purpose-driven women connect and operate in the world.
Because we believe it's not just what you do, but who you are that matters.
Each week, join us for messages and interviews that will leave you feeling amplified and ready to change the world.
Let's do this.
Hello. Happy Monday.
Hey, Amplifiers. Brie Seeley here.
Thais Sky. We are in separate closets. We're trying out this new thing.
But do you know what I really like about this?
That I have my own space.
I just ate the best banana ever.
And I didn't have to listen to the chewing.
And I didn't have to listen to you complain about the chewing and the smell.
This is like a new level of relationship.
It is.
Like
We're getting really clear on what works for both of us.
And
I need to have bananas.
And I can't stand listening to you fucking eat a banana. or nuts. Or any consumption of anything, really.
Oh, goodness.
Anyway, so we're across the city, all the 8 miles away. It's very far away.
We're spanning all of Los Angeles in this conversation.
Yes, we are. But we are coming to you. We have a cool interview later on today with Jennifer Love.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Do you remember it? It's so good.
Oh, yeah. Wait, is this the episode where...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we recorded her interview 2 months ago?
Not that long.
So we're just now recording the intro for her interview. Anyway, so this particular interview is really juicy, and she makes me do something really vulnerable in the extended cut, and you have to check it out. Yeah, it's really, really good.
If you have not yet joined our Facebook community, fucking go do it now. It's www.beamplified.community. And seriously, after you hear what happens in the extended cut of this version, all I'm going to say is, you're welcome. It's so good.
Oh my God, it was the most embarrassing thing in my entire life.
But it was so good.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that I was able to provide educational value for the world at my expense. No, it's really good. Really good. Okay, let's get into today's topic. So we're going to be talking about...
Oh, wait. What? One more thing before that, remember? So we have a dinner party coming up in June in Los Angeles, and this is a different dinner party. Thais and I have been struggling with what to do about our dinner parties for a while now.
Yeah.
And we had a call with this amazing spot in Mar Vista, the Mar Vista Art Department, with Amy, and decided to do a dinner party way different than we've ever done one before. And it's going to be so good.
So instead of the traditional dinner parties where we just get a table for 14 at a restaurant where we don't really get to control the atmosphere and we don't know if the restaurant's conducive to having large dinner parties, and we kind of run the risk of not being able to hear the person next to us, as it has happened, unfortunately, a time or two. We're changing things up. So in this dinner party, it's going to come with a set menu. It's going to come with entertainment. It's going to come with amazing gifts. It's going to come with privacy. And it's just going to be a whole new level of intimacy and deliciousness and good food, good drinks, good people. And we're really excited at what it could look like to do this in the future, but we're not promising we're doing this again. We're going to see how it goes. So we're seeing it as an experiment, and it's going to be really, really epic.
Yeah. Same brilliant conversations as all of our dinner parties, just a new atmosphere, which is definitely going to be more conducive to us getting more vulnerable, more intimate, and really forging those connections that we're all so deeply craving right now. So you can go to our website, theamplifycollective.com, click on events, and you will see the link there to go and get more information, check out the date, time, all those good things, and more importantly, purchase your seat.
Most importantly.
Join us.
Yes. Okay.
And now.
So Brie and I felt inspired to kind of talk about the perfect woman or the imperfect woman, and to get very real with you all about this concept and how it plays out in our lives.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because it's so funny. I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I'm so fucked up. Like, we're so imperfect. interesting because people look at our lives and, they only have a sliver of the view or whatever. And they're like, oh, she's so perfect. She has all these things. And so Thais and I kind of wanted to, I guess, demystify this whole concept a little bit.
Yeah, and it makes sense why we look up to supermodels and these celebrities that kind of look like they have the most ideal life, because that's kind of what we're perpetuated in our masculine patriarchal society, is that women are really objects, and we have to look a certain way and we have to fit a certain mold. And if we do, then we get to have all the happiness that comes with that. The problem is that there is no such thing, and so everyone is trying to fit a model that's never going to be fit into. Like, you're never going to feel like the perfect woman. You're never going to feel like you have it all. You're never going to feel the internal temperature that, quote unquote, you made it. In the sense of looking at getting all of these things to make you feel that way. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Thais, have you seen the advertising go around for The Handmaid's Tale? Have you seen on the buses?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's this super poignant image, and if you guys haven't seen it, go look it up online. But The Handmaid's Tale is a thing it's out on Hulu, and
it's a book that is currently in our book club for May.
Yep. So it's our book club, and then it's now being turned into a series or short series, something on Hulu.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how they've done it. But speaking of objectification, it's this picture of this woman in the handmaid's uniform, which they have uniforms, and she's blurred out, and over the top of it, it looks like it's scratched, and it says object. But you could also look at it from a different perspective and have it say object.
Yes.
And it's so interesting that our media, like this idea of objectification and using us as objects, but then that we can object to all these things. Like it's
I have seen it.
I see it, I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, it's really good. The whole concept in the book is really, really good. And it's, what happens if we were to live in a radical, right-wing religious Christian group, and they take over the country and they make a lot of modifications, and women are basically removed all of their rights. They can't buy anything, they can't read, they can't own anything. They're basically property of men. And while it's scary to read this book, and I've been reading it at night, and Mark, my boyfriend, gets so mad at me. He's like, every time you finish that book, you're so grumpy, and and I'm like, that's because I'm just so terrified that this actually it's not that far removed. If we look at society now, it's not that this society is so far different than our current society with just a few modifications. This could happen to us. And so, it's something that I don't think men really understand, because they don't really have this fear. They've never had this fear of their rights being taken away. And we do. Anyway, so the objectification of women has been around for thousands of years. I've read, Bree, recently that the first evidence of patriarchy religions, so religions that align with the men in the family, took over the matriarchy religions 6.5 thousand years ago, so 6,500 years ago. And the matriarchal religions have not been able to make a scene since. They've never been able to rise up. And so imagine 6,000 years that we've been under the understanding of the masculine systems and structure. And then it's no wonder that women come into this world feeling inadequate, unworthy, not enough, feeling like they have to be objectified, that they have to do everything based on the male gaze. It's really sad. And if we want to start to change that, we have to really look at how we participate in that.
That's what I was just going to say, how we as women continue to then perpetuate it. And for me, one of the ways that I've started to kind of get out of this is to really relish in my imperfections. Like, I'm almost like obsessively proud of how fucking imperfect I am. And kind of like how fucked up how human I am, right? Like, because we're human, and as a result of being human, we are imperfect. And so for me, I've really started embracing this idea of like, I'm just a stupid human that's doing things imperfect all the time.
Well, we just had this conversation earlier today. We were talking about our relationship and uncovering some things. And I was like, we don't know what we're doing. You know, you don't know what you're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. No, nobody knows what they are doing. We're all blind, leading the blind, trying to figure it out. And so we have to start to be really careful of when we place power onto people who we think have what we want, who we think embodies what society deems acceptable, and really look at our own internal judgments and our own internal desires and make sure that we're taking off the glasses of the patriarch, at least in the ways of how we relate to him. And so an example is, you know, if we see a woman politician run for office, are we judging her on what she's wearing? Or are we judging her on the merits of what she's running on and her platform and her education? Are we demeaning her and putting her and judging her into a box of you're only as good as how you look? Or are we looking at her as a whole human being?
Yeah. It's fascinating to look back on the, you know, Hillary Clinton campaign and
it's
stuff.
heartbreaking.
And really, like the media that came out around it and how, you know, even we were subconsciously kind of like playing into that. Or after she lost, there were a bunch of Tyson and I are both in this group online called Pantsuit Nation, and there were a bunch of people that had like run into her, you know, in the Northeast, you know, going for a walk with her dog or whatever, and they'd taken photos with her and she like wasn't wearing any makeup. And people would comment on it. And I'm like, if I had been on the fucking campaign trail, and even before the campaign trail, how much work she's done for our country. Like, of course I wouldn't fucking wear makeup walking my dog.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's so fascinating the way that we, and you know, to be fair, a lot of it is culturally ingrained in us.
Well, and that's, yes, that's exactly what I feel like is important to say. It's not our fault, you know, that this is how we view other women. We were taught this. We were taught that it's acceptable to relate to other women this way because this is how we were related. Because this is how we see men treat women. Because we see this in the media. We see this in advertisements.
It's also not only giving us permission to treat other women this way, but to treat ourselves this way.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yes.
Much more than anyone else.
Yes. I think the reason why there's such a huge it's been this way for a very long time, women in dieting, why it's such a thing is because we were taught from a very early age that your worth comes from your body. And if your body doesn't conform to certain ideals, you're not good enough. And so we get distracted with dieting and obsessing over food and obsessing over our bodies instead of doing and focusing on things that matter, like education, like putting ourselves out there, like taking a stand for something. I believe that our obsession with dieting is one of the many ways the patriarchy keeps women down. And, you know, when I say this, I want to make sure that I'm extremely clear. We are victims to a society that hates women. We are, hands down. We are victims. And every day we get to decide how we are going to navigate that and how we're going to not perpetuate it to the best of our abilities. So, of course, Brie and I aren't saying don't buy makeup, don't care what you look like, but really start to notice if you're judging other women or judging yourself based on the merit of how you look versus your contribution. If you're objectifying women and objectifying yourself.
And this is something we talked about and touched on a little bit in another episode too, where we really, you know, we talked about even the simple act of buying a fashion magazine.
Yes.
It's hard because like I love fashion. I love going through the way, like the layouts of the way that they composed the images and the visuals and pulling together the textures and the colors. And like, I love that stuff so much. And buying those magazines is perpetuating this whole conversation of the perfect woman. Yeah. And I was even, you know, standing in line at 365 the other day getting groceries and like reading all the headlines on all the magazines. And I'm like, no wonder we are so fucked up.
Well, and you know what's interesting, Brie? And maybe there's something that we can look deeper into here. But I'm finding that now this idea of the perfect woman has become so fucked up that imperfection is also considered perfection. For example, who's that model, that white woman who has gap teeth? Like she has like a big gap in her teeth, but she's like a really famous model.
Don't know.
Well, that's cute. That is considered cute. You know, it's considered a redeemable quality. It's unique. And so we're seeing that even these imperfections that aren't really imperfections, because she's drop dead gorgeous, 6 feet, like 100 pounds, the quote unquote ideal beauty standards. Like she fits all of them except for this imperfection. And she's now turning it into something that makes her have pride that she's not falling into the standards of the beauty standards, but she is, right? So I also want to make sure that when we're talking about this conversation, that we're not also coveting that just because you have one tiny imperfection or that, what am I trying to say, Brie? That maybe it's like our society has glamorized certain imperfections that aren't they're still aligning with the beauty standards. For example, it may be different.
They're like acceptable.
Exactly.
Acceptable beauty deviations.
Exactly. Like a mom taking a picture of her messy kitchen being like, oh, my imperfect life, like messy kitchen. But you know that in every other way, shape or form, she has plenty of money. She looks great, or looks a certain way, has her hair a certain way. So everything else is quote unquote perfect except for this kind of redeemable quality where she's like, oh, but it's because I have children, so that's okay. And that's not what Brie and I are talking about here when we're talking about stepping away from that subjectification of women. It's not to fall into these slight imperfections that still fall into the umbrella of being okay. We're talking about really owning the fact that we are so traumatized people, wounded people walking around trying to navigate this planet. And let's eat a humble pie for a hot second and really honor that we're just doing the best that we can, any one of us. And can we find a little bit of compassion, a little bit of ease and grace in the expectations of others? And
and the expectations of ourselves.
Yeah. As not aligning to this ideal.
I feel like that's almost the biggest one of like, no one else is going to come into my apartment and be like, oh, your sink is full of dishes. Like I have that expectation that it has to look a certain way.
Well, where did that expectation come from?
I mean, probably all this online stuff. Like, my laundry has to be done all the time. And I did laundry a week ago and it's still in the fucking basket clean.
I called my mom this morning and I told her, I was like, if you look at all aspects of life and you grade them, how well you take care of your dog, like A+, like how well you take care of your clothing. For example, I told her, I was like, when it comes to laundry, cleaning the house and any fooding activity, like going grocery shopping. This is what Mark calls it. Grocery shopping, unpacking food, cooking food. Like I would get a D- on all of those things. We are epic fails, my partner and I, when it comes to these things. It takes about a 6-week cycle from a clothing being worn to being put in the laundry pile to being washed, dried, back into a laundry pile, and then hung up again. Like 6 to 8 weeks. That's our cycle right now.
I am at the point where by the time I unload my dishwasher and reload it with the dishes that are dirty, it needs to be run immediately again. Yeah, this is my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And, let's talk about imperfections in our business. I mean, let's talk about how all of the times where we make mistakes or typos or things don't get sent out at the right time, or we send it to the wrong list, or we send, information like people can't buy tickets because of because it's the wrong link, and we forgot to add discounts to our coterie members. And when we make a mistake, people tell us, so we know very quickly. And this is all part of it. And
it's just, I feel like being a human is messy in general. And I look at the stuff that my mom had to do in her life versus where we're at now. And one, how rapidly things have sped up, what our commitments are, what our obligations are, all these things. And I feel like so much has changed so drastically. We have more responsibilities, more commitments, more, especially those of us that are entrepreneurs, like all these things. And then we're expected to keep up as if it's the 50s.
Yeah.
And, we just have to like do the laundry and make sure our husbands are fed at night.
Yeah. 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 There's a lot. There's a lot on us women. So let's see if we can find some sense of tenderness to who we are. And like I said before, the traumas and wounds that we carry. We're all deeply pained. We all have childhood stuff to navigate and work through. We all have insecurities and inadequacies around our bodies, around our performance, around our capacity to be who we want to be in the world. We're all in the same boat. And every time that we judge someone based on how they look, every time we judge someone for having, a mental health challenge that you may not necessarily have, we're bringing each other down, and we're bringing down the cause. And it's, every time we judge someone based on the color of their skin for their performance, or we demean someone based on their race, these are always, we do this to each other all the time. And it's really hurting our cause. If we're to take any stand at the patriarchy, if we're going to, in any capacity, change the collective mentality and have it be more inclusive of women, we have to look at also it being more inclusive to all women and being inclusive to every type of body, trans rights and women who, or not women, beings, any being that is in a wheelchair and can't have access to buildings because they didn't be considerate enough to add, a ramp. And there's just so many ways that we could be more inclusive. And I feel like this is what it looks like to be a good citizen in the world, which it doesn't necessarily mean like another thing that you have to add onto your to-do list, but just a consideration as you're moving through your own life. How can you be more conscientious of the fact that we're like a social web and everything that you do affects this web?
Yeah.
And and notice where you are perpetuating the perfect woman experience through your own posts and social media conversations, and like, what are you showing people online,
Yeah, and even just your thoughts towards yourself. Like,
I love how you keep going back to yourself. I love that.
Well, but it's true. Like, we say that if we want to find peace in our external world, we have to find it first in our internal world. And so if we're constantly berating ourselves and diminishing ourselves for, these little imperfections and things, of course we're going to be doing it outside of ourselves. So, I always say, tend to your own garden first. And of course, it's important to look at how you're perpetuating it in the larger society, but it's also important to look at your shit first. Like, how are you treating yourself? If you're treating yourself like shit, there's of course going to be no way that you can honor and respect another person. Yeah. So, it's always, give yourself permission to be messy. This human thing is like crazy how imperfect it is, but that is what I've found so much love for in this experience.
So let's make sure that we're...
Life's a mess.
Yeah. And
it's
so...
a mess.
So let's make sure we're taking ourselves off the pedestal.
Yeah.
Taking ourselves off the pedestal of having to make our lives look a certain way or have our lives be perfect in some capacity. Just because some people said that this is what perfection looks like. Like, they don't know. They're fucking unhappy. You know what I mean? I just finished binge watching Big Little Lies. So good. So good. And it's about these women who live in Monterey. And so they live in these multi-million-dollar mansions that, walk to the beach or have these beautiful, amazing views of the ocean. And they're all fucking unhappy. You know what I mean? They have the epitome of what the American woman wants in her life. They have rich, successful, good-looking husbands. They have beautiful-looking children. They drive with a car that they want. Money is not an issue. They can buy and do whatever they want. And they're fucking miserable. They have the perfection, and they're still not satisfied. So let's make sure that we're not contributing to that by having other people believe that our lives is perfect as a way of making ourselves feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Amen. Well.
Let's bring on Jennifer Love.
And be sure to join the Facebook group because seriously, epicness. We're totally not telling you what it is. You have to join our community and become one of our people in order to hear what Thais does.
My
and
embarrassing.
It's not embarrassing.
Okay.
Oh, it's so good.
My heart, though, was racing so fast when I did that. Like, it was a defining moment in my life.
I feel like I feel like you and I need to do a podcast episode just about that.
Yeah, I think we should. Actually, I feel like that's what. Oh, actually, I think we have that on our spreadsheet.
On our agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But first, everyone has to go hear what we're talking about first.
Yeah. Go check it out, people.
And let's bring on Jennifer.
Let's do it.
All right, amplifiers, we have one hell of a guest with us this morning. Let me introduce you to Jennifer Love.
Okay, first off, Jennifer, is Love your real last name?
It is my real last name. Do you know how often I get that question?
I bet you get that question a lot.
And no, it's not Jennifer Love Hewitt. It's Jennifer Love.
Okay, that is amazing. Why wasn't my mom that proactive when she remarried to choose a man that had a last name of Love? I'm a little jelly. All right, introduce Jennifer Love.
All right, Jennifer Love is an award-winning, Shark Tank conquering, $100 million plus raising woman. She has 17 plus years under her high heels as a 5-time serial entrepreneur whose international wholesale chocolate company was named amongst the top U.S. food and beverage companies of 2016. Jennifer Love is a trailblazer with a heart that matches her name. She is an agent of abundance and the visionary CEO of One More Woman, a movement leading high-impact women entrepreneurs in 2 to 10 times revenue annually and becoming masterful with their finances. She's an eternal optimist, grounded in hard analytics, and believes anything is possible. In her words, it is not a matter of if, it's just a matter of how.
I love that. Welcome to our Be Amplified podcast, Jennifer.
Yay! Happy to be here.
Yay! So the way we like to start all of our interviews, and the way we will start this interview, is how do you live an amplified life?
I love this question. And an amplified life, I have this vision of what that actually looks like. I'm not sure if I can describe it where everyone can see this, but I'm literally standing with my arms spread wide open. My legs are shoulder length apart.
I thought you were going to say your legs are wide open. I'm like, you get it, girl.
Woo! Yes. And my face is literally pointed up looking at the sun, and there are sun rays in the shape of hearts pouring into my heart. And then what is happening as a result of my receiving and being willing to receive fully is that the amplification of that light is tenfold out of my belly into the world. And I just have that vision for this year, actually, of, that is what an amplified life looks like. It's receiving fully and then literally accelerating that love, that light, that impact into the world. And how you do that, I really think, for me, how I do it is living and using my strengths. On all my feminine wiles. It was fascinating to me this last year, and I'm curious what you two think about this. Last year, I had so many people say to me over and over again, people from different walks of life, people who didn't know each other, and who would come, some who knew me well, and others who were new in my life, reflect back and say, you are so feminine and you're so masculine. I'm like, that is the greatest compliment you could ever give me. Because to me, that's me really leveraging all of my strengths and my superpowers and living fully in them. And so for me, that's part of, I've got several other ways in which I feel like I live an amplified life, but I want to pause because I want to hear you two. What do you think about that?
I fully believe that this integration of both masculine aspects and feminine aspects are important. And I think we've talked about this before in both men and women. We all need the breadth of both of those aspects within our lives in order to, I believe, have a kind of balanced existence.
Yeah, the energies of masculinity and femininity is so fascinating to me because I feel like we know so little of it, and I feel like we make it so dogmatic because we know so little of it. But what is interesting to me is how do we I guess I'm going to answer your question with another question, right? Which is like, how do you offset the predominantly masculine energy that is in the world with our duality of energy of the masculine and the feminine? You know, like, what does that look like? Does that mean that we have to be more feminine in order to counter that balance? Does that mean that we have to embrace both of our aspects in order to counter that balance? You know, I'm still not sure what that looks like.
You know, I think it's really different for each person. Is what I'm like coming to realize more and more for my own personal view. I took a hike. I went to Sedona for my 41st birthday. I have no problem saying how old I am, which was in December. And I went with myself. I took myself on a date. I went from New York City, which is where I live, and went to Sedona for the weekend. And I went on this beautiful hike, and I actually connected with this man who has 32 medicine wheels, which I didn't know what a medicine wheel was until I met this man, and he walked me through his property for 2.5 hours. And I felt during that time in Sedona that I married together my masculine and feminine. And I don't know how to describe that other than just a complete acceptance of the fullness of who I am. And so during that hike, there were moments, because it was getting dark and the sun was setting and I still wasn't back to the car yet, that I was starting to get a little nervous. So I was tapping into both my father and my mother within myself, the masculine and feminine within myself, and finding, the protector, and yet also finding the comforter. And so I think for each of us, it's about finding that own unique balance and how to live that in a world that's so frenetic and supports still today in 2017, largely the masculine paradigm, but that shift is happening. And so whatever you need to do to find that stillness within yourself to really marry both of them, I think we each have to find that for ourselves. I don't think there's one formula.
So I am I do. I've been thinking a lot about this paradigm that is in existence because we live in a traditionally masculine society. I'm seeing a lot of women feel the need to embody this perfect womanness. She has to have a skinny body. She has to have a sexual orientation that is amendable to our society. She has to look pretty. She has to be kick-ass, but also be able to wear heels. She has to have a clean house and the perfect relationship. She has to be a great mother and a driven career woman. And it feels like we have to carry a lot of different identities in this perfect form in order for us to stand properly as women in the world. And I'm curious your perspective on this and what that means to you. Like, how can we be imperfect women and standing in our imperfect femininity in a space where perfection is almost demanded of us?
Listening to that list, doesn't that just sound exhausting?
It's exhausting. And a lot of women carry that paradigm. I see a lot of women's coaches really taunt that paradigm as the perfect paradigm. Like, as a coach, I can teach you how to dress perfectly and run a house and do this and have multi-million dollars and not sacrifice any of it. So I see a lot of coaches kind of tout this ideal, and I feel like it's forming a way of violence against women, of perpetuating this need to be perfect in order to be powerful in the world.
Well, isn't that expectation on yourself really violence towards yourself?
Of course it is. But as leaders, we kind of perpetuate that, right? By exemplifying that.
Yeah, this is such a great conversation that I love that you're bringing up. There is no such thing as perfection, right? Perfection doesn't exist. And there is no perfect balance of anything. In fact, I don't even believe in balance. I don't believe it exists. I believe that the balance is really in a sprint. We have sprints in our life. And so, the way that I like to refer to this is like a teeter-totter, right? Think about the teeter-totter as a kid, right? In order for the teeter-totter to really work, you need to go up and down. If you think about tides in the ocean, it has to come in and it has to go out, right? There's this energetic flow of both hustle and flow, right? It's both. Our lives are meant to be kind of the sprint and then relax and go into stillness and quietness, and then sprint and then go into stillness and quietness. And so there is no perfection. Last year, I found myself early in the year as I was really kind of dealing with this within myself as well, this perfection and this need to have perfection, and coming off of being a workaholic myself. I raised my hand. Yes, Jennifer Love, I am a workaholic. And recovering from that, that comes from a place of control, and that comes from a place of perfection, right? It does. And so part of it is just full acceptance and love and compassion of yourself, that you are and I am both beautiful, messy, and it's all okay. I found myself dancing in Vancouver. I was in Vancouver. I have a lot of Canadian friends. I know, Brie, you do too. And I was
where's Canada again?
Yeah, where? It's
we're
somewhere
joining
somewhere
Canada
north.
pretty soon.
Yeah, California is going to be connecting to Canada soon.
California's seceding.
I just got off the phone with a Canadian for the Speakers Bureau, and they're like, so are you going to be able to come in? I was like, I think so. Let's see. Anyhow.
Jennifer, when I traveled, I lived in Europe for a bit and I was traveling, people would legitimately ask me, do Americans really not know where Canada is? And they, like seriousness. And my serious answer is, yeah, I don't quite understand. Where is Canada? I really don't know. And they would laugh and I would laugh, but it's so funny how there is this idea of Americans that we literally do not know or care where Canada is. Canadian listeners, we love you.
Yeah, we do.
We love you
Well,
tremendously.
not only do we love you, I personally think you're some of the best human beings on the planet. Mm-hmm. So there.
Let's just talk about Justin Trudeau for just no, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. We can go back to the conversation.
There are always exceptions to the rule.
Oh, isn't he a good human?
No.
He's not.
He's not a perfect human. He's not doing some good things to the Indigenous people of Canada.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I missed this information.
Yeah, I know. He's a good-looking man to be doing such bad things. No, I'm kidding. But there's been some controversy around Trudeau lately and his inability. Like, he came off so good, but he's not fulfilling some really big promises that he made to the Indigenous people. But anyway, we're not getting into
Side
politics.
note. Okay.
Okay, keep going, Jennifer.
So coming back, yes, and I happen to be an Indigenous person myself, being largely Native American Indian.
I would love to talk more about that when you finish this.
Yeah. Okay. So perfection. I'm in the middle. I'm in Vancouver. I'm dancing, and I'm just like I'm like embracing in this one of these kind of the north, south, east, and west kind of dance. Right. I don't even know what the dance was called, but it was just this beautiful dance. And there were 5 of us women in this dance studio and just going free forming, and I felt all of that heaviness of the perfectionism within me, and I started letting it go. And then I found myself just starting to sing a song. I'm beautiful, I'm messy, and it's all okay. 'Cause I'm beautiful and I'm messy, and it's all okay. And when I just would sing that to myself over and over, and I took that back, with me to New York after I left Vancouver, and I found myself all of last year just singing that song to me. Because we are beautiful. Perfection is beauty is in the imperfection. Well, a long time ago, one of my very dear friends gave me a book called The Art of Imperfection, and I've kept it on my desk ever since. This was back in grad school, so we're going back a little ways. And really, perfection is about the imperfection. Beauty is really about the imperfect and embracing that. And loving all those parts, those messy parts, and being okay with that. Because you know what happens in messy? Magic.
Okay, but Jennifer, this is very idealistic. So let's get super practical for a hot minute for our listeners. Totally get, this is something that I am very adamantly passionate about, but I want to hear you. How do we, as an imperfect, messy human being, honor our messy, right? Honor our imperfection while being thrown a slew of marketing that's telling us that we are overweight, we are imperfect, and we have to fix ourselves. What can we do in this moment to kind of honor this process?
I'm going to go to a really deep, vulnerable story about myself.
Do it.
I was bulimic for 10 years of my life, all through my 20s. Okay, and it was all about trying to be perfect and about control. And how in the world did I get myself through that? Because that was a massive one. That's a big honkin' whoa. And you know what it came down to? It came down to finding the good in everything in everything. It was about finding the compassion and the love for myself, even when my head was in the sink and I was throwing up. And saying, rather than screaming at myself in my head with all that language about I'm not perfect and I'm so stupid and why am I doing this and I hate myself and all of that talk, and changing that language to, in that story, to this is all you know how to do right now. This is the tool that you have. We're going to get you help. It's going to be okay. And so I turned it into becoming my own best friend, my own advocate, and changing the conversation in my head and the expectations that I had of myself, and just loving that this is just where I am right now. And it's kind of messy. In fact, it's really messy. It's pretty fucked up, actually. But it's okay, because this is all I know, and I can go change this. I can get help. I can do it differently moving forward. Tomorrow's another day. It'll be better. And continuing to hit that reset button every single day.
Yeah, I love this conversation because Tyson and I talk about this a lot. Like, we are the worst people to ourselves. Like, we're so mean to ourselves. Like, yes, of course, we're being fed all of these things, all of this imagery, all of this, media, blah, 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 blah. But we are then choosing to be terrible to ourselves, either as entrepreneurs, as bosses, as
sometimes we're not
ourselves.
Choosing it because it's just so unconscious.
Then
eventually we have the choice to change it. But
we get conscious about it.
But
we are so mean to ourselves, like so mean to ourselves.
Pink has this great song that I love to listen to. And it's about, and she sings. Do you know what that song is? Is it perfection? Whatever the name of that song is. But where she literally is talking about how cruel we are to ourselves, and that we need to change. We need to change how we speak to ourselves. Would we speak to someone else like that? No, of course not. So why are we being so cruel to ourselves? And I think that's really where it starts. I think, eliminating this idea of perfection starts with compassion for ourselves and how we talk to ourselves and how we love ourselves, and just acceptance of where we are.
I love that. And I don't want to change the subject, but I'm going to change the subject. Can I change the subject?
Do we feel complete around this topic?
Do you feel complete, Jennifer, around this topic?
Yes.
I really like it. The only thing I'm going to wrap up is just a reminder to everyone to be fucking nice to yourself. Like, literally.
Just do it.
Just do it. Like, just start. Even if it's one compliment today, I don't care, but just start being nicer to yourself, please. Okay, I'm complete.
All right, so let's talk about your background. I want to know more about your story, and your what?
Heritage?
Yeah, Bree is like mouthing to me because I don't have words. I don't know how. I'm a Gemini.
Tyson's having a rough day.
Words don't come out. And your heritage, please, Jennifer. We would love to know more.
Well, the Cherokee in me would be happy to come out and play. So backgrounds, gosh, anything specific? There's so much to share.
Well, so you obviously have accomplished a lot. So what was your upbringing like, and how did you kind of transition from that? Obviously, you mentioned grad school and into being on Shark Tank, or I don't know if you were on Shark Tank or you just brought a brand to Shark Tank, just tell us everything.
Yes. Okay. So childhood growing up, I grew up with a father who was also an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurship is like in my DNA.
Isn't it genetic? Isn't that how it happens? I swear that's just, I swore for my entire life, I was like, oh, I'll never be an entrepreneur.
I don't know what happened. It just happened. And my father actually was not a very successful entrepreneur. He had massive success and then didn't. So there's that. Childhood was rough. Yeah, it was not awesome. I've had to create my life. I've had to overcome a lot in my life. A lot of trauma, and I think I actually really love that now. I wouldn't have said that to you 20 years ago, but I love that now. I love that part of my story now because it's given me the strength to be who I am today, and to accomplish and to get through. I remember back in undergrad going to Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania, where Hershey factory is. And I remember going into the museum and reading about Milton Hershey's story and how he had failed miserably multiple times, trying to be a candy maker. And I remember standing there and the hairs on my arms were raising as I was just feeling completely inspired by his persistence and his belief in himself. And I took that forward with me. And so much of how I've gotten inspired or how I've kind of moved forward in my life is through quotes. I happen to love quotes and the stories of people's lives. I think the stories of people's lives and the biographies of people are like just incredible. So I've carried that a lot with me moving forward. And I think that really goes into, you read a quote of mine, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how. I really believe that and I live that. And it's what I really look to inspire in others, that there's always a way to get through. There's always a way to overcome it. Even if you come up to a wall, act like water. You can move and flow under it. You can climb over it. You can break it down with, a bulldozer, whatever you need to do. Just there's a way to make it happen. It just may not be the way that you thought. And that's how I've lived my life. That's how my career has gone. And, having built a chocolate empire, that is quite fun. It is funny to me that I stood in undergrad reading Milton Hershey's story, and then many years later, after kind of recovering from bulimia, and then here I am starting this chocolate company. Like really working to figure out how to have a new relationship with food, because unlike drugs and alcohol, you're not able to stop eating, right? You have to eat.
Yeah, I talk about this quite often.
Yeah. So, I had to form this new relationship with food and this new relationship with myself around it. And what's fun about chocolate is that it's
amazing.
It gives you an increase. I mean, dark chocolate specifically gives you an increased dopamine hit.
Thais doesn't eat the dark stuff.
No, I want all the sugar.
She likes the stuff filled with sugar, yeah.
Girl, we gotta have a conversation. We gotta have a conversation, because all the dopamine and serotonin levels in your body will increase when you eat dark chocolate. And what they have found for those who are suffering from depression or those who are, struggling with an eating disorder is that they have lower levels of dopamine and serotonin in their body. So I found it fascinating that here I am, fast forward, having read this story, super inspired, recovering from bulimia, needing to have this new relationship with food, and I started a chocolate company. The one thing that, can actually naturally help me was fascinating. And none of this was necessarily conscious, just kind of unfolded. And, like you mentioned earlier, Nibmore has grown to become an international success. And we did that in, under 10 years, which was incredible. And I learned so much about myself through that, fully healed that relationship with food in that process and grew, and have gone on to have a lot of business success, as a result. During that time, raised a lot of money for the company, $8 million in total, actually. And
that's amazing. Pause. We just interviewed a woman. Well, you know her. You know Vicky Saunders, right? From SheEO. Yeah, we interviewed her, and she talks about how only 2 to 3% of venture capital money goes to women. So that's amazing. Congratulations.
It is true, and I was amongst that 3%, and yet there's so much that happened, even though I was amongst that 3%. Some of the sexual harassment that happened, and how that led to us devaluing our company to some degree. Because we're like, well, at least they're not hitting, at least this next group of investors aren't hitting on us. So this is probably the best that we can do. So even though I was amongst the 3% that got access, things still happened. And this is kind of the stuff that's still going on that I and Vicky are really trying to fight against.
So the other day I went to get a new prescription for my glasses, and this is a new eye doctor that I haven't gone to before, and the eye doctor got really high reviews, which is why I chose this particular eye doctor. And turns out that he was not the one to help me with my prescription. It was another female doctor who was helping me, but he popped in because I'm a new client, and I guess he wants to put his face to his brand. So he popped in and he said, "Oh, your name is Thais?" And I'm like, "Yes, that's my name." He's like, the doctor that delivered my baby with my wife, she's Thais. I'm like, "Oh, that's amazing." And then he goes, "Yeah, she's really beautiful, just like you. And then he proceeds to go onto his phone, look up the woman, and show it to me, and be like, see how pretty she is? And I'm like, I don't care. I don't understand why we're relating in this way. Like, I would much rather learn about how, you know, this amazing woman helped deliver your baby and you're such a happy daddy, instead of connecting with me by complimenting my looks and then complimenting this random woman's looks, and he's married. And it just felt so icky. And I really wish, Jennifer, that in that moment I had said something. But I think I was just so shocked that this is how we were relating that the words didn't come out until he had left. And this isn't even that big of a deal, but it's just these tiny little things that eat away at our self-worth as a woman.
Completely. And I think your point here of, you know, you didn't say anything, I think this happens for so many of us. And the same thing, I was sitting down in our first, we did a, you know, seed round, my partner and I, business partner and I, put money in. Then we did a friends and family kind of seed round, $250,000. And then we, when we went out to actually do our series, big series A, our very first meeting was sitting at this table with this VC guy. And he proceeds to tell my business partner that she's too skinny, that his wife is too fat, and that I'm perfect. And then he tries to dismiss my business partner from the lunch. Now, here's the thing. We were both in such shock. And we never, I didn't look at him and say, that's completely inappropriate. Mm-hmm. This lunch is over. If I were to push the reset button, be able to rewind and go back, I think there's part of me that would love to change that, although I've learned so much. And so I love having that experience because it's fueled me and strengthened me for so much more in my life. But, moving forward, I think this conversation around speaking up, owning your value in that moment, and how to do that, how to empower yourself to speak up for yourself. I think us ladies, we really have a hard time with this.
Yeah. Oh, yes. That's what Own Your Spotlight is. That's what I'm attempting to unravel, is why we have such a hard time speaking up, me included, right? We always teach and learn simultaneously. And it's
completely.
If I could have just gone back and been like, you know what, sir, this is highly inappropriate. I no longer feel comfortable giving you my money and being in your system. I have to go. And withdrawing my money, withdrawing my support from him and his business so that he can see that type of interaction is inappropriate. Because again, even though I wasn't sexually assaulted, I wasn't molested, there was no boundary violation, I was still giving him consent to saying these things to me, which means he now believes that he can say this to other women and the countless women that he's probably already said this to. And listeners, what Jennifer and I are saying here is we're not anti-men. Not what we're saying.
We're not burning our bras.
Although I really would burn my bra. I really would. If there was another solution, I really would burn my bra. But anyway, what we are saying here is that there is a level of power that we have to give ourselves in how people are treating us, and speaking up for a system that has for thousands of years oppressed women. And the only way we're going to change that system is by, in our daily interactions, giving consent where consent is needed, and then withdrawing our consent where consent is not given, right? Where we feel in some way violated in our sense of intelligence and our sense of power in the conversation.
And I think that's why, yes, absolutely. And I think that's why for myself, I have moved forward to support other women in business and around funding, and why I worked with these two, women industrial designers through the whole Shark Tank process, because I wanted to make sure that didn't happen to them, that they didn't experience that.
So I want to keep going. I want to keep going with this conversation, but we're going to take it to our extended cut. For those of you that are listening, if you want to know more about Jennifer and more about this, and we're going to do a rapid round with some fun questions, you can join our Facebook group at www.beamplified.community. That takes us to our Facebook group, which will let you come in, and then you get all the extended cuts and all the secret podcasts that we've recorded before. So Jennifer, for those of us that are listening, what's the best way to get a hold of you to learn more about you and your work?
Well, head over to onemorewoman.com. But if you go to onemorewoman.com/sales and go to the Money Talk page, I will actually gift everyone who's listening here who's an entrepreneur and wants assistance in really scaling her business in a way that is grounded in a healthy, positive way. Then I will give them access to our monthly membership for $1 for the first month.
Amazing.
Cool. Yeah, and Jennifer's brilliant about this stuff. She, One More Woman is a great organization, and you should all look it up if you are a female entrepreneur, like she said, looking to scale.
And
so,
I'm excited about this chocolate situation.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you. That was the chocolate sitting on the table at Archangel, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I had no connection. I was just eating it aimlessly. Massively. I didn't save you a piece. I just
thanks,
ate
Brie.
them all.
No, thanks. No,
And,
that's fine. That's fine. I'm not going to take that.
Totally
personally.
sitting here listening to this, being like, "Oh right, that
Yes.
was a month ago.
Yes.
The chocolate that I was inhaling."
Oh my god.
Yes. With only 3 grams of chocolate, but you know what? She didn't bring it back to you because she knew that you don't like dark chocolate.
I'm always
insert
thinking about
record
you.
scratch. What? What? I don't know. I might be able to convert you.
Okay.
I take that on as a personal challenge.
Do it. I
Do it.
I open up this challenge.
All right, amplifiers. So go check Jennifer out at One More Woman. You know you can always find us on all the socials at The Amplify Co. And we're going to continue this conversation, so hop over to our Facebook community. We will talk to you next week. Until then,
Go be amplified.